The REC market meeting in Amsterdam at the end of November will focus on boosting demand for renewable energy. Renewables consumers, producers and traders from around the world will join government and NGO representatives in discussing how to accelerate the energy transition. Visit www.recmarket.eu.
Hello listeners and welcome to the Montel Weekly podcast, bringing you energy matters in an informal setting. In this week's pod, we have a type of guest that is a first for us. We will speak to a market regulator. Does the energy crisis mean that the continent's market design is not fit for purpose? Can we expect more suppliers or industrial firms to go under amid soaring wholesale prices for power and gas? Does the large price volatility encourage more speculative traders and perhaps open the door for market abuse? To help me, Richard Sversen, answer these questions and much, much more is Dominique Jamme of French regulator CRE, or CRE, I think maybe you call it in France. A warm welcome to you, Dominique.
Thank you very much, Richard. Very happy to be here.
Perfect.
We call ourselves CRE.
CRE, so not CRE, but CRE. Glad to have that clarified right at the start. Now, Dominique, there's been a lot of media coverage of the energy crisis, the impact on suppliers, on households and industrials. But how do you as a regulator view these soaring prices?
Well, first of all, I would say this is basically a gas crisis. Mm-hmm. That's the origin of the crisis is gas. We have seen a lot of commentaries on the reason for that. Obviously, the very, very strong economic recovery in Europe, in Asia, and the rest of the world, which obviously induced some tensions on the logistics. We also have, specifically in Europe, a very long winter. Last winter, it lasts until mid-May, so the underground storages have been very low to replenish and to fill. And then, so we've seen this crisis grow and grow, and I would say lately we have had some kind of at least interrogation on the behavior of Gazprom, because it's obviously a very, very large player and supplier of Europe for gas, and it did not seem to respond to price signals. That was the issue. And so we have seen lately a strong decrease in the gas price, linked to the fact that Gazprom has announced that they will raise the gas supply to Europe starting November. So I understand that maybe that's the perspective that Gazprom will act again as a commercial player, which when the price rises, they try to sell more. So basically, we have a gas crisis, and given the importance of gas in the production of electricity, especially in winter, obviously we will have this kind of extension of the crisis to the electricity market. If I take France, you will also hear that France is on only nuclear plus hydro. Not at all. We have 13 gas power plants, combined cycle, and so they are mostly used during winter, and so obviously we have to pay them. And also know that France is an electricity exporter around the year, but not in winter, not when it is cold. We import a lot of electricity on those days. Obviously, we import electricity mostly produced with gas and coal elsewhere in Europe. So that was for France, but basically, the electricity production, especially in winter, is depending on gas. So the link between the two is obvious. One last point, maybe important for the following, maybe if you want, those crises are kind of different because gas, France is producing 1% of our gas in France. So we are importing all our gas. I think in Europe it's not the same figure, but Europe is a heavy importer of gas. So these price increases, extraordinary price increases, are a kind of external shock and a kind of a natural calamity, the same. And so basically Europe and France have to pay more for the gas. And so this is collectively a kind of an impoverishment of France and Europe. It's not the case for electricity. Electricity is produced in Europe, especially in France, produced in France, and France is a net exporter, as I said. So for instance, for my country, as a national collectivity, we don't become poor with the crisis. We only see massive transfer between consumers who will pay more and more, and the losers of this crisis, and the winners are the producers, especially the producer of non-carbon electricity, and also the state budget, because state budget, they sell CO2 quotas, which are more expensive than they were before, and also they have these contract for difference with all the renewable production, and obviously it costs the state budget less and less, a lot less money when market prices are high. So it's not the same. In electricity, we are not becoming poorer, I would say. We just have to organize, and it's up to member states, not regulators, to organize if they want to compensate this transfer, if they want. And we have seen that the toolbox that has been presented by the European Commission is just around that. The tax policy, social policies may be used to compensate for those transfers.
I think you've put that very nicely, Dominique, the reasons why prices are so high. But as you as a regulator, are you concerned about this, and especially if a lot of the reasoning for this is because of the actions of one gas supplier to Europe?
I didn't say that the reason for this is the result of the action of one gas supplier. We have many, many reasons. But I would say maybe perhaps the continuation and the aggravation of the crisis these last weeks, can be linked, and we see that when we read the press, the specialized press, can be linked maybe to the behavior of Gazprom. Well, as an energy regulator, we are in charge of the surveillance of the wholesale markets of gas and electricity. And so obviously we do our best to do that. Acer is in charge of coordinating the action of all the 27 national regulators. So as for France, what we have announced, but this is an announcement, and we cannot go further into details, in that we are at the moment focusing all our means, human means, technical means, on the present period. Because as you know, market surveillance is a very complex issue. And when you have detected some unusual behavior, I would say, then you have to go into an inquiry, which is a very formal phase. And then you go into, if this is justified, you go into the procedure or the process of sanctioning the actors. So, but this will take months or years. So we cannot obviously I cannot go into more details. What we do is that we are focusing our means on looking at what is happening now, gas and electricity markets.
I think CRU has come out and said very clearly that it's boosting its surveillance activities in the wholesale market. I know you can't give any details or talk about that. Are you afraid there may be more suspicious activity in this period of high prices and price volatility?
Our mission, as I will see it, is to guarantee all the public, market players, etc., all the public, that the price formation in the wholesale markets is fair, is good, and that the price resulting for this process, just reflect the good balance between offer and demand. That's our mission. And we are doing, I would say, 365 days a year. And our process is kind of, we have the people working on specific cases, and so working on inquiries and going into the sanction process. And we also have people working on detecting unusual behaviors, etc., etc. So what we said is that we just kind of focused a lot of these people and means on the present period, because when prices are moving, let's say 10 euros per megawatt hour one day on another, you have plenty of room, obviously, for a market abuse, any kind of market abuse. And so I absolutely don't say that we have detected anything, and we haven't detected anything yet. But obviously, I think it's our mission because the price of gas and electricity is now a societal matter. It can even put at risk the economic recovery and the growth rates of some of European countries. So it's a matter of an extremely important. So our mission is just to do our best to look at that, I would say, almost in real time, and then we will see what we can see, and if we detect some unusual or abnormal behavior. That's how we see the things. And I think we are in phase with Acer on that one.
Acer has often said that it's challenging to keep the staffing at the levels requirement to properly survey the wholesale markets. Is that a worry for CRU?
It's had been a worry in the past. I don't know if it is a secret or not, but let's say about 2.5 years ago, we have a kind of a certain void in our staff. We're not overstaffed. That's the rest I could say. But at the moment, our staff is good, and we have no vacancies, and we are trying to professionalize and reinforce our technical means, our people. And no, at the moment, it's not an issue. It has been, to be honest, 2 or 3 years ago, where we had obviously a few key people living in a smaller period of time. And so we were a bit less staffed. But it's not the case anymore.
Excellent. I'd like to move a little way back into the sort of energy crisis, as it were. And now in several of France's neighbours, a lot of suppliers, both gas and power, have gone under due to several reasons, mainly because of a lack of hedging forward sales. What's the situation in France? Is Creux expecting more suppliers to be in trouble in the coming months?
Well, it would be surprising that the suppliers community is just totally immune to that crisis in France and not in elsewhere in Europe. So obviously, even for suppliers that have been very cautious, very efficient in their policy, that's just the risk are increasing. Because, for instance, the balancing risk, it's a matter of volume of unbalance, but also obviously of the price of the energy. And if the price of energy is tripling, then the financial risk is tripling. Then the guarantees that you must give to a certain number of counterparties, they also are increasing. So all that is not a very good climate for suppliers. So even if you are very well prepared and covered before the crisis, so that's for sure. Then you may have, I don't know if it was the case in the UK, but maybe it looks so, suppliers that are not covered. And if I understand that, it means that they have sold to end customers contracts with fixed price, but in the supply, they have not the same level of coverage. And so that for us is kind of an issue. To be honest, we have seen this issue, we really understood the difficulty with the crisis. Maybe we weren't, but I think the UK was in the same situation. We weren't prepared enough for that. But if I look at that, if you are a supplier who doesn't have a very good coverage for that, then when the real-time prices are good for you, then you take the difference because you have sold at a fixed price to your end user. But then if this is the contrary, that's like in this crisis, then you go under. And your customers are left on the market without a contract and obviously at the worst moment of the crisis. So this kind of asymmetry for me is an issue. Well, I'm speaking very freely for that, but I've also spoken on that matter in the French press. So we will see as a regulator what we will do, what we will recommend, if this is the result of the government of the law or the law. And I would say let's go through this crisis, and then after the crisis, we will have time, and it will be the moment to try to draw lessons and perhaps to make some changes in the rules regarding suppliers. I don't know.
So, what are the options for you as the regulator? What can you do now to either help the situation now and further down the line?
Well, I would say I separate two things. During the crisis, try to do the right things, take some emergency measures, and after the crisis, just take stock. Think a little and then try to improve things on the long run, I would say. So during the crisis, it's a pity, but we have not at the moment in France suppliers not of last resort, fournisseurs de secours. I don't know how we could translate that in English.
My French is not that good. Apologies, Dominique, but is it similar to the supplier of last resort, or is it a different concept?
Yes, let's say that's it. That suppliers that will take over take on the consumers if another supplier goes under. So we have not that in place. It's a question of months. It will be maybe in place first quarter 2022, but now it's not there. So we have recommended to our government to just take a decision to just design one supplier for last resort for gas, another for electricity, just temporarily without any competitive process because we have not enough time. But I think we hope that the government will follow our advice on that. I think if we have that, then we are properly fitted to face any kind of event that could develop.
Do you think you could lead to more consolidation amongst small suppliers in France?
Our view as a French regulator is that this consolidation was probably due to arrive at one moment or another, because we have at the moment, I would say 55 suppliers active in the electricity market, retail electricity market. It's a lot. Maybe it's a stable situation, but maybe not. And we thought that it would arrive. But obviously, this crisis could accelerate things. What we don't want to see is that, I would say, the bad behavior or some suppliers who I just explained before would have an impact on the image the image of all suppliers. And it would be bad because we wouldn't like to see a situation where we end up with only, let's say, 5 or 6 very big suppliers, either French ones, because we have EDF, Engie, and Total, but or subsidiary of European big energy companies. I think it would be a pity because I think we think that small suppliers are, and most of them are behaving well during this crisis. They are giving a lot in terms of innovation, of quality of service, of diversity of the offers for the and the choices for consumers. So we hope that okay, for some consolidation obviously was probably already in the cards, but we would not be happy if it was too heavy, and so we are trying to separate bad behaviors and so maybe bad suppliers, I don't know, and the collectivity of suppliers who for most of them are behaving well, even if times are difficult.
It sounds like you have a lot of work on your hands, Dominique. I think you have a lot of things to survey at the moment and keep an eye on. Amongst the energy crisis or the high power prices, there's been a lot of calls from some governments about the status of the market design in Europe and calling for some kind of reforms. What's your view here as a regulator? Do you think the market design is as it is at the moment, is fit for purpose?
I would separate, again, gas and electricity. For gas, I'm not an opinion on some of the proposals, for instance, shared contracts at European level, etc., etc. Honestly, I don't know. What I see is that in France, we have a system for gas storage, which we think is good, which we thought was good before the crisis, and we see the crisis and we are happy with that, which is you can book storage capacity at market value, but then when you have booked them, you have to fill them before winter. Otherwise, we face very large, heavy penalties. And so it was a kind of a surprise, I would say, to see that in countries that are not a surprise, but to see that, in this, for the coming winter, we see in Germany and also Netherlands, Austria, etc., that some storage are not filled. And so this is an integral part of the crisis. And so maybe, I don't know if it's so easy to do, but maybe try to say to market players, okay, you book storage capacity. This is free, obviously, access to the infrastructure. But then when you book them, you have to fill them before winter. That's the purpose of underground storage. So for me, it would be probably an improvement of the regulation. Then you have the electricity. What I would say I have personally, and everybody in the community have a lot of explaining to do, very difficult explaining to do, is why in France, as we have 90% decarbonized electric mix, our electricity price is so closely linked to the gas price. So it's very, very difficult to explain. And so we have had our economy minister, Mr. Le Maire, who has just expressed that politically speaking, it's absolutely unbelievable, and it even said obsolete and absurd. So I can understand that, but when you look a bit more deeper, well, it's not that simple. And we have conveyed the message, and my president, Jean-François Carenco, just had an interview in Le Monde saying that this market model for electricity in Europe is a very good one. First of all, it has been approved by every member state for many years. Even the last package in 2019 was reinforcing this market model. But other than that, it's very efficient. It's very efficient allocation of means. It allows to optimize globally at the European level the production, and it's saving billions euros per year at the European level. All the reserves are also shared efficiently. The interconnection is used efficiently. So we think that we just should not try to go too much into moving to another model, which, by the way, doesn't exist. We do not have another model on the shelf. That being said, we clearly have some improvement to make, and the question of long-term visibility is a difficult one. But because even if you are pro-market, etc., there is an issue there. Because, for instance, Europe and France want to reindustrialize first, and then also the same time to electrify a lot of industrial process, because we go to the net zero in 2050. But each case is we have decision in 100 million euros, and how do you make those decision if you have no visibility beyond, let's say, 3 to 5 years on the price of electricity? And so we think that there is probably some work to be done in order to be able to either be more relaxed on long-term contracts between suppliers and especially industrial consumers, or also try to have on the wholesale market, I don't know by what means, but to have some long-term visibility. I don't know, let's say 10 years contract. Maybe we should, I don't know how, but we should nominate some market makers in charge of bringing some liquidity on those long-term periods, let's say 10 years contracts. Because at the moment, you don't have any 10-year contract or very little of them. And what we have seen also is that in the last European summit, the French government position has softened a bit. So they're not saying anymore that it's absurd or something like that. But anyway, there is room for improvement.
Just a final question, Dominique. In the months to come, do you expect these markets in the French electricity wholesale market and gas market to get more political scrutiny or less, as perhaps if prices, or if and when they start to fall?
I think that for sure there will have some lessons to be learned. And so I don't expect that, I don't know. It's difficult to know because politics is politics. And as a regulator, I'm not very good at politics, I would say. But well, I think it's a lesson. When it happened once, it can happen anytime. It can re-happen anytime. So I think we have to be better prepared, as I said, for the maybe suppliers and there's some improvement to do. And regarding the model, well, I think that at the moment, what I don't like is to have some countries, member states, saying one thing, we have to change things radically, I would say, and others publishing something saying, no, we have nothing to change. That's not how Europe functions. I think maybe that discussion will be more efficient and more clever when things will have settled down. But no, I don't think that will be forgotten as soon as the price will become will lower. So no, I think we will have lessons to learn, and that even as regulator, we within Acer, we think that we have some proposal to make, but I would say now that is for urgency measures, and then we have time to think, and then we'll have to come up with some improvement of the model, especially regarding long-term visibility, I think.
Perfect, Dominique. Thanks very much for being a guest on the Montel Weekly podcast this week.
Thank you very much. It was a real pleasure.
So listeners, you can now follow the podcast on our own Twitter account, aptly named the Montel Weekly Podcast. Please direct message any suggestions, questions, or, let us know if you think you have a good idea for a guest on the show. You can also send us an email to podcast@montelnews.com. Lastly, remember to keep up to date with all that's happening in energy markets on Montel News. You can subscribe on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts from. Thank you and goodbye.